There we go. Covering Module 11 today, sections 19 and 20. So we're getting into the third unit. So high five to all of you for making it through the first two. Exams have been graded. I'm halfway through grading project 2. I should have the rest of those done either today or sometime tomorrow. My goal is today, so cross your fingers. But so far you guys are doing well, so keep up the good work. Of course, if you have questions, you know where to find me. So, but today we jump into the world of financials. So section 19 and 20 begin the financial literacy portion of this course. And with this, we have 2 web work assignments, and then we're also going to have, the weekly quiz, the weekly discussion board, and this week we have an Excel assignment. So when I post the live recording of this video, I will also be posting the Excel help video to go with that. So if you're not sure how to put the formulas in Excel for simpler compound interest or how to graph that to show the difference between them, there's a video for that. So all you got to do is check that out and I will post it. So there you go. Okay, so week shouldn't be too bad. If you have been an adult for any length of time and you have paid any bills, then you probably will feel pretty comfortable in the first couple of sections because money makes sense to people who use money, right? So in section 19, wait, before I get started, I'm just kind of on a roll. But before I get started, does anybody have any questions either regarding the project that you just turned in or the exam or anything else? I feel like I should stop that. Okay, no, people are feeling pretty good. Okay, when you look at your grades, right, in Ivy Learn, if you have any questions, please contact me so we can make sure that we're all on the same page. But, okay, if there are no questions, we'll just go ahead and jump in. Section 19, we start with credit cards. And, in the discussion board, it deals with credit cards, and it makes you think about the positives of credit cards because in this section, I feel like we focus solely on the negatives that are associated with credit cards, and there are some positives as well. So when we're talking about credit cards or loans in general, car loans, home loans, any of those kind of things, we get into the idea of credit. So good credit versus bad credit. Does anybody know anything about good or bad credit? Doesn't matter. What's a good score, what's a bad score, how you get a good score, anything. Anything you know about credit, feel free to chime in with your microphone or with the chat box, either one. But what can you tell me about credit? A good score is 850. Higher the number, the better. True. Those are both true. Really, I think any score above 800 is really good. To buy a house, you need at least a 640. Okay. And let's build on that concept right there, not necessarily just with a house, but also with credit cards and other loans. We're going to need that. Good credit is vital for a good mortgage and loan rates. Yes, who wrote that one? That's exactly, Amanda. That's where I was going to with what Vanessa said. The better your score is, the better your loan rates are going to be. I remember I had a friend, this is about 12 years ago, who wanted to get a car loan, and she had a bankruptcy on her record that was fairly recent, and her interest rate for the car loan was going to be like 14%, which is ridiculous for a car loan. And, so she got a cosigner, and then her interest rate dropped to 2.5% because her cosigner had super good credit. So, having good credit will allow you to get a lower interest rate, which you're going to save money in the long run. And then, Brooke, to get good credit, you need to pay back loans. Yes, and pay your bills on time, right? All of those good financial decisions lead to a good credit score, which then allows you to get a good interest rate. It's kind of a cycle. You get into one little bad hole in terms of financials, and it's hard to get out of. So you want to kind of start early, kind of like with your GPA, right? You want to start early and make good decisions financially, pay back your loans on time, don't be late on your payments, and those kind of things. So good. You guys know a ton about credit, so I can talk less. Always a fabulous idea. So we're going to get into credit cards. And use the raise of hand feature. How many of you have at least one credit card that you use on a regular basis? Raise your hand. I have like 3 that I use on a regular basis, so I can't raise my hand in here, but I wanted that to be. Okay, you have none. All right, so this will be a good learning experience for you. So a lot of times with the younger students, no, I have no idea how old you are, but a lot of times when I have students just out of high school, they don't have a credit card yet, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just good that when or if you finally get one, you know how to use it responsibly, right? Yes, Brooke, I have one card that is only used for gas as well. That is the purpose of that credit card. Yes. Okay, so getting into credit cards. And I'm going to try to not bore you, but I think it's important, especially if you don't have one, that you understand how these work because they can be fabulous. I love my credit cards. They do a lot of good things for me, but it's because I manage them well. And so we want to make sure we do that. Okay, so fees with credit cards. A lot of credit, yes, Vanessa, they can destroy you too. And that's why we have to talk about the good and the bad of credit cards because if you get in a hole, they can destroy you very quickly. A lot of credit cards have fees associated with them. So American Airlines, they try to get me a credit card every time I get on their plane. But you have to pay a yearly fee just to have that credit card. I don't want to pay a yearly fee. So that's one thing to pay attention to when you're looking to get a credit card. All of the credit cards that I actually own, they all are free to have. The only fee that I have with my credit card is if I don't pay off my balance, which we get to with finance charges, right? So every credit card has an interest rate that is talked about as an APR, which we will get to again in just a moment. And that interest rate will dictate how much of a finance charge you pay every month. Now, one thing in real life, you have what we call a grace period on your credit cards, right? And if you have one, you probably know this. You buy whatever you buy on your credit card. If you pay that off at the end of the month, there is no fee attached to it. So it's basically just you get a month buffer before you have to pay your bill. However, if you do not pay your entire bill, right? So your Visa bill might be $1,000 and they'll say, "Oh, your minimum payment is $25." And if you only pay 25, they charge a finance charge on the rest, the $975 you didn't pay, and that's where the credit cards will destroy you. Interest and finance charges, and they add up in a hurry, and they will get you quickly. So here we go. So interest and finance charge are based on an APR. We need to know what APR stands for. So does anybody know what APR stands for? Annual percentage rate. Fabulous. Okay, and the key word there is annual. Okay, so then this is percent and this is a rate. So this is the interest rate, right? It's usually given in terms of a percent. Now, when you make credit card payments, do you only make a credit card payment once a year? Because that's what annual means. Annual means once a year. No, how often do we make credit card payments? Monthly. Exactly. So when you're dealing with this and you're finding finance charges, how do you think, mathematically now, if we have an APR, how can we change an APR, an annual percentage rate, into a monthly percentage rate? Because that's what we want to do. We want to find a finance charge per month, not per year. Exactly, we're going to divide it by 12. So that is the idea. Ooh, not multiply, Amanda, we're going to divide. We're going to take the whole year and we're going to divide it into 12 months. Right. So this is the idea you're going to need to think about over the next few sections as we work through the financials, because all of our financial pieces have an annual percentage rate, right? Car loans, mortgages, if you go to a bank and you're putting money into a CD, or, I mean, even if you're talking about stocks and investments, everything has an APR, but we deal with things on a monthly basis. So we take our annual, we divide it by 12. Don't forget that. That will be crucial. All right, let's actually do some math because I'm bored. Just kidding. Okay. Now, one thing that I do need to talk about, when you work through your packet, I assume that you all work through your packet like you're supposed to because you're good people. But when you work through your packet, this section, it's just not very good in the packet in how it's worded. So I want to make sure you understand that in real life, you only have a finance charge if you carry a balance. You pay it all off, there is no finance charge. Your packet assumes otherwise. Your packet assumes you always have a finance charge because your packet wants you to do mathematics. So just be aware of that. Okay, so number one, we want to find the finance charge, right? So the interest on a $1,200 balance if the APR is 18.99%. Okay. And 18.99 is actually not a horrible percentage rate for a credit card, which is sad as that is because that's a huge interest rate. Okay, so does anybody have any idea how we might start this problem? We're going to talk through this one together. And you can start with what we ended with on that last slide. Nobody? We're going to take our balance and we're going to multiply by our monthly percentage rate, right? Because we do this by month, right? So yes, exactly. A couple of you chimed in there. Good. Amanda and Brooke. We're going to take our APR and we're going to divide it by 12 because that's our monthly percentage rate. Now, before we do that, this is given as a percent. We can't play with percents. So when I'm going to divide this by 12, what do I have to do with it? Before the 18.99%. Change the percent to a. Your final answer is going to be money. But percent must be changed to a decimal. Exactly. So we're going to take that and make that 0.1899. So there's the APR. I'm going to divide it by 12 to make it an MPR. And I'm going to multiply that by your balance. And our balance is 1,200. Okay. And so you can type that into your calculator as 1,200 times 0.1899 divided by 12. You can put that all in at one time. And of course, we're talking about money, so we're always going to round to the nearest penny when applicable because this is all dealing with money. So can anybody hook me up with our interest for this particular problem, our finance charge? Anyone? Bueller. $18.99. There we go. Yeah. So if you carry a balance of $1,200 and you have an 18.99% APR, that next month you're going to have an additional $18.99 on your bill as an interest payment, right? So think about $19. I mean, I can eat for almost an entire week on $19 if I'm being frugal, right? I can do a lot of business with $19. And that's just free money that you're giving to the credit card companies, which is why they give you these small minimum payments because they want you to carry over a balance because that's where they make their money. Okay. All right, you guys do one. Find me the finance charge on an $800 balance if the APR is 26.99%. Yeah, very good. Good answers coming in. So again, we take our balance and we multiply by our APR as a decimal. We divide by 12 to make it monthly and round it to the nearest penny. We get $17.99. Finance charge. Good. Okay, now let's take this a step further and perhaps I should erase some crap. Okay, so this is something that you're going to be asked to do in web work. I think may or may not be something like this on the exam. Okay, what we're going to do is we have our friend Sarah, who obviously she does not capitalize her first letter, whatever, has a $1,400 balance with an APR of 20.99%. She makes no new purchases and only makes the minimum payment each month of 6% of the new balance. Let's complete the table. Okay, so we're going to do the first line together, and then I'm going to have you guys complete the table on your own. All right, so we start with our beginning balance, which is $1,400. Now, how do we find the finance charge? Well, we just did that. Oh, balls, what did I just hit? There we go. Okay, saved it. Finance charge. We take our beginning balance, we multiply by our APR, and we divide that by 12. $24.49. Okay, so she carried over a balance of $1,400. We have a finance charge of $24.49. How do I find my new balance? Because Sarah didn't make any other purchases, so it's just her beginning balance and her finance charge. We add them together. Exactly. So we're going to add the beginning balance plus the finance charge to get the new balance, which yields $24.49. I'm struggling today. Okay, so now let's think through the next piece. If my new balance at the end of the month is $1424.49 and I'm making a minimum payment of 6%, how will I find my minimum payment? You're going to multiply that by 6%. Exactly. So we take our $1424.49, we multiply by 6%, which is 0.06, and your calculator spits out what? $85.47. You guys are on it today. I love it. So your minimum payment is $85.47. Now, this is just a little Beckyism on the side. If this is your life right now, and let's pretend that you're short on cash and you don't have $1424.49 to pay this bill because life happens. Well, take that 85 and pay any more than that you possibly can. If you can round that up even just to 86, you might say, well, 53 cents doesn't matter. Well, over time it does. So anytime you can round up and pay anything extra is better. Right? We'll talk about that again in a couple sections when we get to mortgages. Okay, anyway, back to the problem. So our balance at the end of the month was $1424. We paid $85.47. How much is going to be carried over then to month 2? $1339.02. Good. $1339.02. Okay, I'm going to give you guys like 2 minutes. I want you to complete the next 2 lines. We're not going to complete the end of month 4. Our big goal right now, I would like to know look how good, that was a pretty good straight line. I'm impressed with myself. We want to know the beginning balance of month 4. So after 3 months of payments, what's the beginning balance of month 4? Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes, so see what you can do there. Those are the correct answers. I don't know if everybody else is close to done or not, but the key is that you always just continue to do the same thing. So if we're finding the next finance charge, we're taking the $1339.02. That is such a pretty color. And we multiply by our APR, right? We divide by 12. So that should have given you $23.42. The key is to always round to the nearest penny. You want to make sure you're keeping your rounding. Then you add those two together and you get $1362.44. Multiply that by 6% and you're at $81.75. Subtract your balance and your minimum payment. So at the beginning of month 3, we owe $1280.69. Again, we multiply by the APR divided by 12 and get $22.40. We add those together to get $1303.09. Multiply by 6% to get $78.19. And as Amanda and Vanessa said, we end up with $1224.90 at the beginning of month 4. Why is this depressing? Or maybe you don't find it depressing. Yeah, you're paying a ton more. So if you look at your 3 finance charges, those are, just a little bit over $70. So in 3 months, you're paying an extra $70 for something that you're not getting any more out of. At this point, it's already depreciating in value even. There's a commercial out right now that I've seen a couple of times, and I don't remember what it's for, but there's people that are out shopping and they went out to dinner and they said, oh, it's so great that we're going to spend $150 on that $60 dinner. Because it's a credit card and they're talking about the finance charges of if you don't pay it off, how much you end up paying for something over time because of these finance charges. And it's really something to think of. Right, and Excel will do all of this for you if you plug it in right with your cell references and all of that business. So it's something to take into account. So if you do have a credit card and you're struggling with balances, you can put it into Excel and then figure out, okay, if I change this monthly payment over here to $100, how much more quickly the balance goes down and you can pay it off. And Noah, don't let the math scare you. Let the math be the educational part of it. The big thing about credit cards is being aware of how much you're actually putting on the credit card. You never want your bill to surprise you, right? Yeah, and I never carry a balance. I pay mine off at the end of every month, and so I get rewards points. I buy Christmas presents with my rewards points every year, but that's only beneficial because I never carry a balance. So Visa actually pays me to use their credit card because I get those points out of it. So it's really a matter of just making sure, putting something on a credit card that you can pay for. You don't want to spend outside your means, which that's kind of life in general. But this is making the minimum payment. And if you only make the minimum payment every month, that's when you get into trouble. Yeah. So it's really about being able to manage using that credit card in a smart, efficient manner. But, okay. Okay. So Vanessa says, I've always had great credit, but getting cards and paying them off each month brought me above 800. Absolutely. Some people think I'm crazy because I use multiple credit cards. I have one that I use for groceries and one I use for gas. I like to keep things separate because in my head it just works. Yeah, and I have a fantastic credit score because I pay those off and I can manage my credit. Your credit score is just a numerical representation of how well you can manage your money. That's what a credit score is. So the more things, and I don't want to say that it's good to have a ton of credit cards, but if you're paying your rent and you're paying your bills and you can manage a credit card and you can have a car payment and you can do all of these, adulting things and do them on a schedule and not be late on those payments, yeah, your credit score goes way up because it shows that you are financially responsible. And that's what a credit score is all about. So, all right, good conversation. Thank you guys for actually contributing to that. Does anybody have any other questions over basically this example? This is kind of an overarching piece to section 19. Most of your problems, I think, are going to be a part of this, maybe not necessarily the entire table, but we kind of just hit everything at one time. So do any of you have any questions about this particular example, or really section 19 in general with credit cards or credit? No? Okay. Yeah, the next four sections are, well, section 20 I could take or leave it. But the financial ones, the credit cards, the loans, the 401k sections, this is my favorite part of the class. And I think it's probably the most beneficial. This is crap you're all going to use, which is great. And then we get to section 20, which is the boring section. I guess it's okay. It's interest. So we're going to talk about, in section 20, two different kinds of interest, simple interest and compound interest. And, when I first got to this class, I was like, I don't know why we ever talk about simple interest. Nobody uses simple interest. This is dumb. And then I bought a new car. And when I was at the car dealership, I was talking to the dude that was sitting there. And we were talking about financing for my car. And I said something about, is there a penalty for paying the car off early? That is always a question you want to ask if you're getting a big loan, because there are some loans that they will charge you a fee if you pay it off early, because if you pay it off early, potentially you're paying less interest and they want their money. So I always ask that question when I get myself into a loan situation. And he said, no, we don't charge a fee because we use simple interest. So no matter how quickly you pay off your loan, you pay the same amount of interest. And I was like, wow, that is fascinating. So simple interest is alive and well. It's not used everywhere. It's not used very widely, but certain car dealerships evidently are using simple interest. So these formulas, by the way, are on your formula sheet. So on page, I guess it's the backside, 246 at the bottom, you will see I equals PRT. And so that is how we find the interest for simple interest. Now, the deal with simple interest is that it is only based off of the initial principal. And the initial, pretend I can spell. So the initial principal is the amount you start with. So if you buy a $20,000 car and you're using simple interest, the amount of interest that you're paying is only going to be calculated off of that $20,000. Doesn't matter anything else. It's that $20,000. It's calculated. Boom. There's the interest. Done. Which is very different than compound interest, which we shall get to in roughly 5 minutes. So we need to know what these different pieces mean in this formula. So I've already kind of told you that I stands for interest. What does P stand for? I kind of already gave you that too, I guess. That assumes you were listening, because we all know we can't. No, it's not Pinterest. Your brain is somewhere else. But that's funny. That makes me smile a little bit. Principal is what the P stands for. So P is the principal, which is your initial amount, what you're starting with. Your R is your rate, right? This is generally where your percent comes in. So your APR. And then T stands for time. And there is something specific about this, and that is time is generally in years. And that is a detail that you want to make sure you're paying attention. Correct, Vanessa. With simple interest, paying extra payments does not help you pay less. Yeah, because they calculate at the very beginning, you're going to pay $4,000 in interest. I just made up a number right there. And that's split up over your payments. So you're going to pay it no matter how quickly you pay it. Yeah, which is brilliant on their part, because if people pay it off quickly, they're going to pay the same amount no matter what. So it is kind of brilliant a little bit. Bad for us, absolutely. It kind of takes away the motivation to pay things off early, right? Whereas with a lot of mortgages are compound interest, which we will get to next week. We do mortgages, but there is motivation in your mortgage to pay extra. And again, we'll get to that next week. Okay, so that right there is what it all means. Now let's go ahead and put this into practice, and let's do a little math. Again, erase. Okay, so we're back to Sarah. Maybe a different Sarah, because now she's got a capital letter. I don't know about all this. So Sarah invests $600 at 2.5% simple interest for 6 years. Okay, so how much interest does she earn? Thanks for getting my joke. I appreciate that. Okay, so interest equals, how much is our principal? 600, because that's how much she's investing initially. Then we go our rate. What is my rate? My interest rate. Okay, Julie, you are correct. It is 2.5%, but there we go. We're going to take that 2.5%, and then as Vanessa did, we're going to change that to a decimal. So 0.025, it's like you guys are reading my mind. And then we multiply by the number of years, which is how many? 6. All right, so little multiplication magic leads us to what? $90. So, oh, just 1 0. There we go. Okay, so she's going to earn $90 in interest over these 6 years. So we get to part B. What is her balance after 6 years? $690, exactly. So if we want to find our balance, we're taking our principal and we add our interest. So our principal is 600, our interest is 90, and that leaves us with an ending balance of $690 at the end of 6 years. All right. Fabulous. Simple interest. I'm sorry, did somebody have a question?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so my car payment, when I look and see that they take it out, it's $178 roughly, but like this month, $16 went to interest, and then the other $162 went to the principal.
Right.
Is that because the $16 is going towards that amount of interest over the 5 years of the loan. Is that
Right.
what that means?
Yeah. So let's assume, I don't know if your car is simple interest, but we can pretend it is just for this example. So at the very
Okay.
beginning, they took however much you paid for your car times the interest rate. They used this formula and said, okay, Shannon's going to pay $2,000 in interest. Again, I'm just making crap up. And then they said, okay, if she's making 60 payments, we're going to take that money, we're going to divide it into 60 payments. And so you pay a little bit off your principal and a little bit to the interest every month. Yes.
Okay. I just saw that and I didn't understand what it meant. So that I just wanted to make sure that's what was happening.
Yeah. So if it's simple interest, you will pay the same amount of interest and the same amount of principal every month. If it's compound interest, we will talk about that next week when we get into loans more specifically. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah, because the initial or the interest is different every month. So I'm assuming it's not simple.
So then you're dealing with compound interest. So you would benefit by paying more every month because you'll
Okay.
pay less interest over time if you pay more every month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. This section 20, in talking about interest, is talking about good interest, which we didn't really specify at the beginning. When I say we, I mean me. Interest in turning of investment, savings accounts, certificates of deposit, those kind of things. So we're talking about positive interest here in section 20. When we get into section 20, I don't know, 21 or 22, wherever we get to loans, we're going to do the same kind of stuff, but we're going to talk about loans. So then it's bad interest, right? So I always say, good interest is money that the bank gives you. Bad interest is money that you give the bank because, we want the money to come to us. Okay. Any other questions? And yeah, Vanessa, you're not kidding. Talk about how the interest starts out higher when we're talking about compound interest in loans. It's going to be fascinating. We do a pretty exciting, okay, you're not going to think it's exciting, but we do an Excel assignment with mortgages that is a little bit eye-opening. If you've never bought a house, it may scare you a little bit, but we'll talk you off the ledge for that. I just bought a house. It's not scary. It's a good, exciting thing, but the numbers behind it can be a little intimidating. So, okay, you guys try this one. Trevor invests $2,000 at 1.75% simple interest for 12 years. Interest and a balance. Go ahead and find that one. Yep. Yep. Answers are starting to come in. Good. Let me get my pen. So for those not live, interest is our principal times our rate as a decimal times 12 years. And as the chat box is letting me know, that is $420. So after 12 years, Trevor will have $420 in interest that he's earned, right? That's good money. And then the balance after 12 years, we take the amount that he started with, we add the money the bank has given him for free, and there's $24.20. Okay, great. There's simple interest in a nutshell. Not a whole lot to it. Let's go to compound interest. So the difference between simple and compound interest is now with compound interest, this is found off of your most current balance. So when you think about simple interest was only based off of your initial deposit, right? The initial amount of principal. Whereas the compound interest, your interest every month changes, kind of like how Shannon talked about with her car earlier, but your interest changes every month based off of your balance. So the bigger your balance, the more your interest, right? So we're dealing with the compound interest formula. Now, if you dig through your packet, it gives you two different formulas, which makes me kind of want to throat punch people because they're the same thing. It's just the way we work here. So here's the formula. B equals, this is also on your formula sheet. I think it gives it in words on your formula sheet. We're going to do symbols here. 1p times 1 plus r over n raised to the t times n power. Now, one thing that I want you to be aware of, a lot of your calculators, you can type this all in at one time, but I want to make sure that your exponent is together. So you can either take t times n first and get just one number there, or if you want to actually type it into your calculator, 12 times 4, whatever, make sure that's in parentheses when you use your exponent key, right? Okay, so we already know that B stands for balance. We talked about that. P stands for principal. R is our rate as a decimal. T stands for time in years. But now we have this pesky letter N. So how do we deal with that? What does N stand for? Does anybody know what N stands for? And it's not sample size like section 18. Anybody have an idea? I like the honesty of no. Good. Okay, so N stands for the number of times you compound each year. So this is where reading is really going to come into play. You got to make sure you're paying attention to the words. So if we say we are going to compound annually, if we compound annually, how many times a year is that? Once, exactly. So N would be 1. That's the easiest problem because if you divide by 1, it doesn't change anything. If you multiply by 1, it doesn't change anything. But we may also now I can't even talk. We also may compound monthly. If you compound monthly, how often is that? 12. Now we're dividing by 12. Now we're multiplying by 12. We could have quarterly. How often is quarterly? 4. Yep. And so that's what you have to pay attention to. How often? Now, another thing to pay attention to is that this formula gives you the ending balance. So we're going to have to work backwards to figure out how much interest was earned. Okay, let's play. Assume a $1,200 deposit with an APR of 3.5% compounded annually for 4 years. Okay, so what is the balance after 4 years? So our first order of business is just to get this all into the correct formula. All right, now if it's compounded annually, what is our value of N? 1. And that's something that I would recommend that you write down first before you get into your formula. That way you don't make any silly mistakes. All right, so I know that N is 1. So when I go to my formula, balance equals principal, 1,200, times 1 plus my rate, change that to a decimal, divide it by N, and then my exponent is N times T, where T is still our time in years. Now you can see with an N value of 1, if I had left that out and made just had that be 0.035, that's the same thing. Because when I divide that by 1, right, my mathematics does not change. But just for the sake of the formula, there it is. So see if we can plug that in and what kind of answer we get. $168 is not correct. You should get an answer of $1,377.03. This becomes a calculator business, right? Knowing how to plug it in. And depending on your calculator, your button sequence may change. So if you can't figure out how to make this work in your calculator, if you can send me a picture of your calculator, I have most of the regular calculators kind of memorized. So if you can send me just what your calculator looks like, I can send you back the keystrokes in order of how to get this in there. And so some of you can just type it in as you see it. Some of them are going to have to actually break it down into steps. And if you can't figure it out, you send me a picture and I will help you, because I don't want you to not get these problems correct because your calculator sucks, right? There you go. Okay, so any other questions on that formula of how to do all that? Okay, now let's go to B. If we know that we started with $1,200, that was our initial deposit, and we ended with $1,377.03, how do we figure out how much interest was earned? Think mathematically here. Yeah, exactly. You subtract. This is what I ended with. This is what I started with. And so the difference is the interest. So you can see the difference between simple and compound interest and how we're finding these things. With simple interest, we find the interest first and we work up to the balance. And with compound interest, we do the balance first and we work backwards to find the interest. Okay. All right, let's have you guys try one. Now this one's a little bit different. You're compounding monthly. So go ahead and see if you can find the balance and the interest. I'm going to give you about 1 more minute-ish. All right, so the first thing that we have to decide, which is what I left out of this formula, is no. Compounding monthly, what does that mean? What does that tell us? N equals what? 12. So you're going to divide this by 12, you're going to multiply that by 12. So your answer should be 25, 54, 82. And think about this as you're working through these problems. If this is good interest, right, this is money the bank is giving you for having money in there, your ending balance should be bigger than what you started with because they're giving you money. So Shannon, your number was less than what you started with. Yeah. 8 times 12, 96. That's your exponent. Yep. You should, for those of you who have to do things, so you would want to do this first, get that number. Then you would want to do this second step, get that number. So then you would take whatever this is inside, 1 point something really small, raised to the 96th power. That's your third step. And then the fourth step would be to multiply by 2,000. So the very last step is to multiply by 2,000. And that's kind of the key to that. Okay. Any other questions about calculator usage for right now? Or that problem right now? Okay, so if this is our ending balance, 2254.82, how do I find, oh good, Vanessa figured out her calculator. Shannon, we might have to look at your keystrokes on your calculator to figure out why you're not getting the right answer. Are you multiplying by 2,000 or are you multiplying by 1,000? Because that'll be a difference. But if we end up with 20, there you go. I could, by your answer was off just in a weird way. So there you go. You're fine. You just used the wrong number. Okay, good. That's an easy fix. So if you end with 2254.82 and you started with 2,000, how much interest was earned? There you go, 254.82. The difference between what you started with and what you ended with is your interest. Okay. All right. Let's do one more, because I think with these, it's not necessarily, you're using a formula, you're plugging numbers in, but you really, need to be comfortable with what you're starting with, what does your exponent look like, your percents to decimals, what are you dividing by, and all that business. So go ahead and try this one. A deposit of $600 with an APR of 4% is compounded quarterly for 30 years. So now we're dealing with quarterly. What does that make your end value if we're talking quarterly? 4. Very good. Okay, go ahead and try that one. I'll give you a minute or so, maybe 2. Yep. First answer to come in is a correct one. Start with our principal. 1 plus the APR, change to a decimal, divide that by 4 because of the quarterly, and then I take the 4 times 30 as my exponent. And as they're starting to come in, we end up with $1,980.23. What does that make my interest? $1,380.23. Very good. Oop, forgot my 2. Yeah, there we go. All right, you feel a little bit more comfortable? After you do them a couple times, you get the keystrokes down. It's all about knowing how to use your calculator for these problems. Yeah. Okay, so that's compound interest in a nutshell. The last thing we need to talk about in this problem is the rule of 70, or in this section. The rule of 70 talks about, it's basically doubling is what it's about. So if something is compounded annually, we can use the rule of 70 as an approximation for how long it will take to double. That's what this is about. And you do that by taking 70, I don't know why I'm writing everything up top, divided by the percent. And this is as a percent. All right. And again, this is an approximation. It's not exact. It's just saying, hey, if I know my money is compounding annually and it's 2%, I would take 70 divided by 2, and it would take approximately 35 years for that money to double. And it doesn't matter how much money you have because of the percentage, right? Things based off percents, it'll double no matter what. So, okay, let's actually do a problem instead of me just yapping. How long will it take for money to double? Again, the amount doesn't matter. If the APR is 5% and it's compounded annually. So when you're thinking about homework questions or test questions, you're looking at, the word double. If it doubles, you're thinking, okay, I need to take 70 divided by the percent, and that will give me the number of years it will take to double. Whoop, man, I can't spell today, or any day, really, for that matter. Okay, but it has to be compounded annually. So what's the mathematics behind this problem? What am I going to divide 70 by? 5. Exactly. And so it would take 14 years for this money to double. Whether we started with $20, $20,000, $200 million, doesn't matter. It's 14 years. Okay. Now, just something to throw out because I know web work. If you see something that's quadruple, what does it mean to quadruple something? Yeah, it's 4 times. You're doubling twice. So quadruple, in terms of the rule of, you're doubling twice. So if this question had said quadruple instead of double, well, if it will double in 14 years, then it will quadruple in 28 years. Because quadruple is doubling twice, because you're multiplying by 4. Okay, just so that when you get to that web work question, you're not, what the what? There you go. There you go. Okay, one more problem. I'll have you guys try this, and then we'll call it a day. The population of the U.S. increased at a rate of 1.6%. This was as of 2016 when I made this PowerPoint. How long before the population doubles? Let's go ahead and round to the nearest year, please. $44 is correct. Remember, you are leaving, where's my pen? There it is. You are leaving the percent as is. So we just take 70 divided by 1.6. Calculator comes out to be 43.75, which rounds to approximately 44 years. Think about that. I think most of you people are pretty young. You're probably going to be around for another 44 years. So right now, the population of the U.S. is roughly 320 some million. In 44 years, that's going to double to like 650 million. Where are all these people going to live? Right? That's when you say Montana, North Dakota, Idaho, all of those states that in space. Well, then they wouldn't be part of the U.S. Right? But anyway, it is what it is. Okay, I don't know if that's still what our increase rate is. I haven't looked recently. Obviously, it's 2018, and this is from 2016. So, okay, 1256, pretty much right on time. I'll give myself a high five for that one. So that's sections 19 and 20, the beginning of our financial business. And does anybody have any questions for me? Remember, I will be posting the Excel help sheet along with this live session video as soon as it does its transcribing in business. And yeah, keep up the good work. Let me know if you have any questions. As Project 2s are being graded, if you have questions on anything that I wrote or commented, shoot me an email. I'll get back to you. Okay? All right, that's it. Have a good week. Have a good weekend, and I will see you. No, oh my gosh, stop. We have to talk about next week. I'm not going to be here next week. I'll be at a conference next Wednesday. So, whoa, dang it, that's a fun section. Hmm. Okay, well, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to find the live session from last semester for the sections that we're covering next week, and I'm going to post that as well. So we don't have a live section next Wednesday, and my next week kind of sucks. I'm doing a lot of stuff next week. So um, yeah, so no live session next week. I will send you an email to remind you of all of that. I will post videos so that you can watch them, and yeah. Sorry. I'm glad I thought of that right now. Okay, any other questions for me? Otherwise, we are done for the day. Okay, have a good one. See you guys in a couple weeks.